All right. First of all, we have Clarissa Blank, who graduated in 2014. She is the Director of Religious Education and Youth Ministry at St. Rita Catholic Church in Alexandria, Virginia. After graduating with a BA in theology, she worked for 4 years as an admissions counselor for Christendom while completing her MA in evangelization and catechesis from the Christendom Graduate School. Then we have Chris Foeckler, who graduated in 2012, has spent 8 years teaching mathematics and theology while wearing many hats in and out of the classroom at Chelsea Academy, here in Front Royal. From producing plays to coaching soccer to running extracurricular activities, he has plenty of experience helping to develop the whole person in his students. He holds a BA in theology and lives with his wife and their 4 sons here in Front Royal. So give it up for Clarissa and Chris.
All right. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see a few familiar faces in the crowd here from my years as an admissions counselor here at Christendom. It's good to be back. As mentioned, my name is Clarissa Blank, and I work at St. Rita Parish in Alexandria, Virginia. I'm the Director of Religious Ed and Director of Youth Ministry, and I'm also this year teaching in the school some religion classes. Tonight, I'm here to speak to you specifically about being a Director of Religious Education. So to start things off, I kind of wanted to know how many of you here are maybe interested in working in religious education in the future, as it's crossed your mind once or twice. Awesome, we've got a few, that's great. Hopefully you learned something helpful tonight. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to mention, I think it's a common misconception that being a Director of Religious Education means you're going to be teaching religion classes. While that is certainly an element of it, a larger part of being a Director of Religious Ed is administration and kind of working, preparing your catechists, reviewing curriculum. There's a lot of more administrative sides to it. That being said, I do also get the opportunity to visit classes, and I do teach, I sub, but I'm more supposed to be a resource to my catechists. But we will spend more time talking about DRE stuff later. I first wanted to talk a little bit about my time here at Christendom. So first of all, I was first introduced to Christendom just being in Catholic circles. I saw it in various newspapers and websites, ads for Christendom College. My brother certainly led the way here. My older brother, Nicholas, attended Christendom before I did. And that kind of, set me on that path. I attended the Experienced Christendom summer program when I was a senior in high school, and that's really what sold me. I loved the opportunity to meet the counselors, to meet some current students, to meet faculty and staff. I loved the classes, and I knew that if I were to attend Christendom for 4 years, I would get that solid education in all of my classes. I would be well prepared for life after Christendom. So again, the people were a draw. I knew that I would get grow in my faith, grow in my relationship with Jesus Christ. So that was great. Having my brother here was a plus. I appreciated that he kind of started to forge the path. Some of you may know I do have 2 younger siblings who attend the school right now, Martha and Michael Blank. So those are my siblings. That's good. I'm glad you guys like them. That's awesome. I ended up at Christendom. While I was here, I was involved in a lot of different things, which will come up a little bit later in my talk here. But as mentioned, I did major in theology while I was here. So I was kind of on track for working in the field of religious education. All right. One of the things that was really helpful during my time at Christendom, all of my classes, my friendships, my relationships with the professors all helped me to grow in confidence in speaking about my faith, which was very important as I was moving towards pursuing a career in religious education. For those of you who are seniors or who are kind of looking towards your senior thesis, I was very intimidated at first by the idea of defending my thesis, which is something that I think theology majors still have to do here. That being said, it was a great experience to realize, now I do know what I'm talking about, and I'm well prepared. I've studied this. I've spent all semester working on this. It's been in my thoughts every day. And that experience of, defending your thesis, defending your faith, sure, to people who agree with you, but you're still having that experience was really helpful. So that was great. Another thing that was really helpful in retrospect, I was fortunate to go on several mission trips with Christendom College in the spring. First of all, just a lot of fun, a great experience. One thing that has helped me kind of in relation to that currently is that I traveled to Spanish-speaking countries. So I went to Guatemala, I went to the Dominican Republic, and being exposed to in like a real way to the Spanish language ended up helping me a lot. At St. Rita's in particular in Alexandria, a large part of our, many of our parishioners are Hispanic. So while I am not fluent in Spanish by any means, it kind of helped me to become familiar with their culture and to, again, be living that faith on mission. Another big thing that helped was just being involved. Again, anytime you're evangelizing, anytime you're trying to spread the faith, it's so important to be approachable, to be able to talk to different people, and to be confident and willing to speak about your faith. So being involved at Christendom in various groups, I met a ton of, I had friends in so many different groups. I had friends, I was meeting people from all of the different classes, and that has ended up being really helpful to me. Just those people skills, I guess. Okay, and just to kind of wrap up my story really quick before we move on. After graduation from Christendom, I worked in the admissions office with Tom McFadden and Sam Phillips for 4 years. So I was able to kind of stay around Christendom and, again, develop those skills, those administrative skills maybe that have been really helpful now. And I was also working on my master's in evangelization and catechesis from the Christendom Graduate School, which again was very helpful to me, and I'll mention that again in a few minutes. All right, so that's a little bit about me. Now a little bit about the Director of Religious Education job, so being a DRE. So as the DRE at St. Rita's, I'm responsible for our religious education program in all of its aspects. So definitely working with kids who are in kind of those regular, what you think of as religious education classes, learning their faith, maybe preparing for a sacrament. But I'm also responsible for our RCIA program. So I work with our priests to develop that, to meet our candidates who are preparing to enter the church. We have a Catechesis of the Good Shepherd program, so I've been able to help with that a little bit and learn that style of catechesis. And then definitely special sacramental classes as well. So there's kind of a lot of different areas of religious ed that I'm involved in. Okay, a few other things I need to do as the Director of Religious Education. The Arlington Diocese in particular has standards of learning. So there's specific things that we are expected to teach depending on which grade you're teaching. So different articles of the faith that we're supposed to cover, we're supposed to talk about with our students. So I'm kind of working with my catechist to make sure we check those boxes, that we do teach about the commandments or definitely the sacraments, the Beatitudes, Bible history, whatever we're supposed to talk about with that particular grade. As I mentioned, I'm also primarily there to be a resource to my catechists. So anytime they need assistance, they come to me. I'm their kind of first checkpoint. Our pastor and really both of our priests at St. Rita's are very helpful as well, but first they'll come to me. So I'll kind of then go to Father if needed. All right. A few things about struggles that I've had as a DRE, maybe to give you a little bit of advanced knowledge if you find yourself in this position in the future. I was fortunate, I was blessed to grow up in a Catholic family. I had Catholic education prior to Christendom, but then also definitely at Christendom. And a lot of hypothetical knowledge. So I was pretty well grounded in my faith. I knew the teachings of the faith, but I hadn't had a lot of experience, kind of that experiential knowledge of teaching the faith. So that was definitely a hurdle for me. How am I going to make sure that these children, these adults who are learning about our faith, leave prepared? How do I make sure that they are ready to receive the sacraments, to become a part of our Catholic faith? So again, I had a lot of that hypothetical knowledge, but not the experiential knowledge. As a young, new DRE, I was also very hesitant to ask questions of experienced DREs. I kind of felt like there were things that I should have already known. What I'm here to tell you today, that shouldn't be a concern for you if you're ever there. The other DREs, the other people, the diocesan staff, they're there to help. And depending on which parish you're at or which diocese you're working in, there will be differences. So it's okay, and it's encouraged to ask questions. But again, that was kind of one of the things that I didn't want to show my ignorance. So I hesitated there for a while before finally just saying, yeah, I gotta ask these questions. So that was kind of one thing. A few stories maybe of the triumphs, the really beautiful things I've been able to be a part of as a director of religious education. I'll share one story from last spring. So before we had to shut down our in-person classes, we had been able to have our first confession service for all of the students who were preparing for their first Holy Communion. There was one family with 3 children who were preparing for the sacraments. Most of them had, so typically it's in 2nd grade that you receive your first Holy Communion, and there were a few older kids who just had never gone through that process. They hadn't received those sacraments. So there are 3 children in this one family. They went to make their first confession. They came out and were just so happy. It's great to see these 2nd graders just feeling awesome after they make their first confession. It's really, that in itself is a blessing. But in particular, after all of the students had made their first confession, we opened it up to any family members who were there who wanted to go. And these children, their mother was there with them. And after, the lines were almost gone, and eventually I saw her go get in line to go to confession. Afterwards, she came out and she went back to her kids, and she was crying. She was, I went over later and she's like, I haven't been to confession in years. And seeing her kids go through that was just, it was what she needed. She kind of came back to confession, and it was just a really, really beautiful moment of the parents learning from the kids' experience of the faith. So that's one really beautiful moment I got to witness. There's so many other things. I love RCIA. I love helping with the adult education because they just have a different knowledge. They've kind of noticed what they've been missing. Again, especially for me being a cradle Catholic, I'm used to the faith. I've grown up with it. But it's really special to see these adults who have journeyed. Maybe they've been looking at various faiths. They've been trying to find the truth, and to maybe come in at sort of the end of their journey. They're already pretty sure. It's still an amazing experience to be a part of that and to help them think through some stuff. My philosophy classes here at Christendom were very helpful in that regard, thinking through these things with them. All right, so those are a few maybe of the both struggles and triumphs of being a DRE. I kind of wanted to, I want to wrap up with a few suggestions for you all. So reflecting back on my time at Christendom, and maybe for any of you who are interested in religious education. First of all, your professors are going to love this. Be attentive in class. I know it's hard sometimes. Trust me, I've been there. I have many times gone back to my notes from Christendom in various classes, not just my theology classes. Take good notes. You may want them later. So that's just one thing I would encourage you. I know when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to do that sometimes. But maybe if you can, have that forward thinking of, I may want these later. Your professors will appreciate it too. A big one, which I'm sure you guys have heard before, make connections, network, talk to alumni, talk to various professors who maybe have connections that would be helpful to you in the future. This is true no matter what field you're interested in. talk to the people who may be able to help you in the future. The reason I first heard about and really probably got the job that I have now is because of Tom McFadden. He knows our pastor, Father Guy, and mentioned it to me as like, hey, you should apply to this. You talked to Father Guy, and here I am today. So definitely, also Tom McFadden was a DRE, so he has that experience as well. I know Mrs. Krebs has helped teach religious ed in Front Royal. There's different people you can reach out to. Also, feel free to contact me. I'm here to help you guys as well. And not only in terms of religious ed, but even my teaching style, I've kind of taken things from various professors I had here at Christendom. Whether it's Mr. Brown's encouragement, his getting so excited about an idea that you suggest or ask about, Dr. Wunsch's enthusiasm. Dr. Janislawski was very helpful to me. He really instilled in me a love of the scriptures. He kind of encouraged that through his exegesis assignments. There's a lot of, again, you'll learn from your professors as well, things that you really love about their teaching style, things that you maybe want to imitate in the future. If you have the opportunity, I'd encourage you to teach. If you have the opportunity to volunteer with a religious ed at St. John's in Front Royal or in various opportunities, that's a great thing to do. Again, I had that hindrance of not really having the experiential knowledge, and if you can kind of get over that earlier, help out with classes, get that experience in the classroom, that'll be very helpful in the future. So that's one suggestion I have. Okay, one thing I mentioned at the beginning, being a DRE is a lot about leadership and management and administration. And any opportunities you have to be a leader on campus, to organize people, to plan, even being on the Student Activity Council. Being on SAC helped me a lot with knowing how to organize people, how to get tasks done. If you're a resident assistant, if you're involved in Shield of Roses, no matter what club or activity you're involved in here, can you find a way to become a leader, to help organize your peers? That'll be helpful. And again, start thinking about your options now. If you're interested in being a director of religious education, working for the church, working in the field of religious education, there's a lot of different positions there. It's the earliest you can start considering it and doing that research and talking to the people who will be helpful, it will benefit you in the long run. And again, I know you guys are focusing on your classes, which is awesome, but you also do have a lot of resources here at Christendom, a lot of people you can talk to and experiences you can have. All right, let me see, I'm almost done here, and then we'll pass on. I know this isn't quite relevant to you guys yet, but I would also encourage you, if you're interested in working in the field of religious education, think about getting a graduate degree. I know, especially for you seniors out there, you're probably not thinking about going on to more school just yet. I know my graduate school classes here at Christendom, I took classes and got my master's with the Christendom Graduate School of Theology. They went a lot deeper, again, graduate level, than some of my undergrad classes. And I would encourage you to kind of keep that in mind. Start thinking about it. Maybe start asking other alumni, did you go to grad school, and if so, where? Start to get some tips on what was helpful to them. So again, that really built on my Christendom undergrad education and was very helpful to me. Okay, most importantly, focus on your prayer life. If you are kind of, no matter where you are, no matter what you're planning to do, that's so important. Focus on your relationship with God, grow in your prayer life, frequent the sacraments. But especially if you're going to be working in the field of religious education, your students, your catechists, they're going to want to see you living your faith. I can't tell you how many times, in my experience as a DRE, I just have to go to God. Like, I need some humility here. I need to trust, because I don't know how we're going to get everything done tonight that we are supposed to get done. There's so many, you just have to, both in relying on Him, but also if you improve your prayer life, that's going to help you, especially in the realm of religious education. If you're going to teach about him, you better know him. All right. Okay, to bring everything together here. One of the things that drew me to Christendom was our motto of restoring all things in Christ. Ever since I was in high school, I was kind of interested in working for the church. I wasn't sure what that was going to look like yet. While I was at Christendom, I kind of got more interested in the director of religious education field. But I knew I had been given this great gift in my faith, in my education in the faith, in my family, and my friends, and my professors. I'm fortunate that I get to live out that restoring all things in Christ every day at my work. I get to see those people transformed by learning the faith of Christ, by receiving the sacraments maybe for the first time. So I'm very fortunate that I get to see that restoration. Some people plant the seeds, and I get to see the benefits. It's really a beautiful thing that I know everyone doesn't get to see, that active restoration of all things in Christ. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. So thank you very much.
Hello. Extra brownie points for my captain over there. For those of you who don't know, my name is Chris Foeckler, and I am the men's soccer coach. But lames win games. But that's not why I'm here. Sorry, guys. I want to kick off with a story. Do you not want me to tell a story? Got it. Okay, well, I'm sure this one will be a goal. All right. It was a goal of mine. All right. One of the most important things I can tell you if you're thinking about being a teacher, if you are a teacher, if you're trying to be a better teacher, is the importance of the craft of classroom management. That may sound really narrow and specific, but it's the one narrow specific thing I want to start with, and if you want more narrow specific things, I have lots of those. You can ask about them in the questions. This comes, I've been teaching for almost 10 years now, and this comes from way back in the early days of my career as a teacher. And I had a group of students, 7th graders they were, that were quite rowdy. And if you meet any of them, some of them have gone to the school. They'll back me up on this. But it was one day in particular that I have never forgotten, and it's to this day still the funniest thing that has ever happened in my classes. I was teaching, there's a wide room, sort of like this, and I was teaching over here, and then I moved over here to talk to these students, finished a point over here, came back, and there is this 7th grade boy right about there, just sort of sitting there, just sort of like, I'm here at school, I'm doing school things, I'm studenting. He had a black permanent marker dot right here, 3 lines, and 3 lines. And he didn't have that when he walked in the room. And it took me aback. I just stared at him. And his friends around him started to snicker. And then finally, he sort of like woke up to the fact that I was just mouth open staring at him. And his first 7th grade guy brain went, I didn't do it. How could he not have been involved? I mean, maybe he didn't hold the pen, but it's his face. And everything's been downhill since then. I'm just kidding. No, that was this kind of thing is the illustration I want to give you of the fact that you can come from a school where you learn a lot of philosophy and theology and history and principles and get very academic things and go out rip-roaring ready to go, and stuff like this happens. How do you handle that? How? How do you prepare for that? Now, sure, there are some schools you can go get education degrees and they teach you strategies and things like this, and they're all very important and helpful. But at the end of the day, the rubber hits the road when you are teaching. And you're in the classroom and you're with the students, and it's just you and them, and you got to make it work. You got to figure out how to make it work. If any of you do decide to go into teaching, and if you're thinking about being a teacher, I have a few tips for the toolbox. Some first things that you should think about, okay? If you're going to do this intentionally, rather than sort of stumble into a career of teaching, first of all, you're not going to last if you're stumbling into a career of teaching. It won't last. You have to be intentional about it sooner or later. Here are some things practical things you should think about. Figure out what kind of school you want to teach at. Because if you end up at a public school, that's a very different teaching experience than if you end up at a parish school, like Clarissa Blank here, right? It's a very different experience if you end up at a private school, and it's a very different experience if you end up at a private school. And it's a very different experience if you end up at a private school. Am I getting the point across? There are many kinds of private school, and it's a very different kind of experience if you go to schools that are perhaps technically private, but they're essentially mission schools, where they go into inner cities and they take on children from very low-income families who are very disadvantaged, and they're offering it as a charity, all right? And the funding comes from somewhere else, all right? Very, 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 very different experiences, all right? And the best thing you can do is to get to know some of these schools, get to reach out to some of them, and test the waters. But get to know what kind of school you want to teach at. Get to know what kind of subjects you want to teach, okay? My heart has been in teaching religion and theology for a very long time, but I have a career because I have a certificate from Christendom that says that I can teach math, or I know math, not that I can teach math, I know math, all right? I was one of the very early math and science minors at the school. I had to plug through that because you have actual homework that you get graded on in math. I don't know if things have changed in history class, but you showed up and maybe you did the reading, maybe you didn't, and maybe you could hide, and maybe Dr. McGuire called you out on it, maybe he didn't. But if you don't do your math homework, Dr. Byers will know. So know what subject you want to teach, and this is a big one, although it may not seem like it at first. Know what age level you want to teach. Know what age level you're ready to teach. What you need to teach high energy little third and fourth graders, it's not what you need to teach juniors and seniors. And what you need to teach sophomores and juniors is not what you need to teach rowdy middle school boys who draw cat faces on each other when your back is turned. They're very, very different. They're very, very different, right? So know what your strengths are, and how do you get to know this? Well, again, try things out. Okay, I'll get to that point hopefully in a little bit. Okay. Again, if you're thinking of thinking of being a teacher or getting started, one of the great assets you will have starting out is going to be your youth and your enthusiasm. Okay, you'll come to school with the wise old teachers who have been doing it for 1,005 years, who have everything figured out, who have lesson plans that they've been using for 50 years that they can use to deploy at any moment, and they can, they know Bloom's taxonomy inside and out. Did I scare you with some actual technical jargon here? Okay. Anyway, but that won't be you when you start out. And the only way to get from starting to there is through a lot of things. Those are great assets, but you're going to need to find a balance. Okay, you're going to need to find a balance between the familiarity you have with the students, especially if you come straight out of college and you go straight into teaching high schoolers. They're like 5 years younger than you, right? They could look at you and say, hey, why should I listen to you? Where have you been in your life? The other guy over there is an ex-Marine who did 4 tours in Vietnam and in Korea, so what do I have to listen to you about, right? So don't get too familiar. so that you can't lead them, but don't get too formal, you can't reach them. All right? So find a balance there. Most importantly, get good resources around you. Okay? Talk to people who know what they're doing. Clarissa made a great point towards the end of her speech, many of them, but one of them that I want to pick up on is reach out for help. Okay? Start now. If you're thinking about education, talk to teachers. If there are professors that you respect, I should drop the if, to the professors that you respect, to the professor, ask them about what it takes to be a teacher, right? If Mr. Brown's crazy style connects with you, ask him about it. Ask what makes him tick, right? And lots of professors. So talk to the professors. When you go to look at a school, look, do they have good resources to help you develop as a teacher? Are there teachers there that you would want to sit down with at lunch or something and say, gosh, these 7th graders, they won't shut up. They keep drawing faces on each other. What do I do, right? Look for teachers that you can turn to in those moments that can help you with that, all right? There's a lot of good resources out there. There's a lot of good information, a lot of good ways to help you teach, and especially with classroom management as well. Look for that, get in touch with that, look for those. So have good resources. All right, those are some practical things. I could go on for the rest of the evening about lots more practical tips, but if you want some more, ask me. All right. I teach at a private school up the street, Chelsea Academy. It's not a mission school. We don't have, other funding coming in to make sure that poor people come and get taught, which is an important mission, but that's not what we are. And I sort of stumbled into my career a little bit. I was a little late to the game in terms of planning post-graduation, and I was still getting my application to a graduate program finalized at graduation, and it involved going up to Providence, Rhode Island, and interviewing at some schools to see if they would give me a position that would pay for my graduate program. And there weren't any. So there I was, 48 hours after graduating, with no job. And here I am. So there's hope for you, too. But the point is, it's never too early to start planning, but don't get too crazy about it, all right? Get started, look for things, get involved, test things out. St. Paul says, test every spirit. If you're here tonight, that means, hopefully, it's not just the beer and the drinks and the candy and the stuff and the beautiful Miss Clarissa Blank and the sparkling wit of Coach Chris Foeckler. It's here because you're trying to do something very serious. You're trying to discern what's next. And that's part of your responsibility right now, right? So in discerning, test every spirit, all right? Okay. Sorry this is a little scattered, but I'm going to go through, Miss Stevens sent us some very great questions, and I'm going to take some of them one by one and give you a couple thoughts on them, wrap it up, and then we'll be available for questions. All right. All right. What opportunities did I take advantage of which benefited me today in my position? I hope it's not too trite to come across and say the sacraments, because whatever profession you go into, when you are a working professional, it's very unusual that you'll have as much access to the sacraments as you have right now. All right, I'm a working father, and my opportunities to go to Mass I could count on these fingers. All right, at best. All right, confession is an intentional thing that I have to make happen through a lot more different, saying no to a lot more things than because it's not as available. All right, take advantage of them while you have them. Don't take them for granted. And take advantage of them. But I think this next one that I took advantage of, and I encourage you to take advantage of, is in my experience here, and I'm a little concerned that it might be as well now, although I don't have a window into the school life as much as I might think I do. Your classes. All right. There can be a lot of hustle and bustle with events, sports, social activities, SAC events, Life on Tap events. There's a lot of things going on. Roommates, friends, social life, all these things, and they're important and they have their place, but this is a school, all right? And if you're thinking about being a teacher, you got to be able to learn, all right? And you got to be able to learn so that you can teach other people, not just what to learn, but also help them learn how to learn. So work on learning, all right? At this stage in your life, again, I talked about discernment. Discernment's important. Right now, you have a vocation. Your vocation is what you are doing right now. You're a student at Christendom College. How do I know? Because you're a student at Christendom College. So many people who have given talks on vocations will say, you can't tell anybody your vocation. Yes, I can, and I'm doing it right now. What you're going to be in 5 years, I have no idea. But this is what you're doing. This is what it is right now, right? And as a student at Christendom College, your faith, your prayer life, your vocation to holiness absolutely comes first, as it always will. And primary among that is going to be your vocation as a student, all right? Everything else has its place, because Christendom is not a, I can't even imagine what it would be. It's just prayer in school. I can't imagine that. But anyway, everything else has its place, but this is it's easy to put the cart before the horse. When you're discerning, it's easy to put the cart before the horse when you're discerning and say, I need to figure out what I'm going to be doing in 5 years and forget what you're doing now. As the wonderfully wise, very much older than 50 years, space alien Yoda, always looking to the horizon, this one is. Always his mind on the future. Huh? Never his mind on where he was. Huh? What he was doing. So much anxiety about, am I going to be a priest? Am I going to be a religious? Am I going to be a nun? Am I a brother? Am I going to get married? Am I going to have a family? Like, do what you're doing now. Focus on what you're doing now excellently, right? Because, guys, God is leading us now. It's easy to get this backward. Like, God puts in your life now the things that will lead you to what comes next. No, it might not be a signpost that says, Pablo Boada, become a priest. It might not be that. And I'm not saying that one was either, okay? But he does put into our lives now the things that will lead to the things that come next. So listen to what's happening now. And part of what's happening now is your classes. All right. Cool. So classes, prayer classes. I will be forever grateful for my professional experience that I got through the Chester Bellick Debate Society. Oh, not many people here. All right, great. That's all right. That's how we like it. I'm just kidding. We're so elitist. No, but seriously though, even if you don't join the debate society, if you're thinking about being a teacher, some of teaching is talking to people who don't necessarily want to hear what you have to say and might not agree with you. And might hiss and boo at you. So public speaking, extemporaneous speaking, it's very, very good. It's all great. And if you do get involved on the inside, it's another one of the examples of things that helps you exercise administrative responsibilities, organizing people, putting things together. And there's a lot of things going on in the interior with all those secret rights. There's an unparalleled opportunity for political praxis on a very small scale that is widely applicable to all kinds of careers. And I'm using it all the time as a teacher. So there it is. I really benefited from being an RA. Sports helps to find balance. Mens sana in corpore sano. I once said to Dr. Marshner on his way into class, so that he would think I knew Latin and give me a better grade. And it worked. He liked me. Anyway, so yes, have a balance, all those things. That's very good. All right. Good. What suggestions do I have for students to prepare you for prepare for the position that you're in, kind of position we're in? Okay. Teaching is a part of learning. Okay. Even within Bloom's taxonomy, I heard somebody sound like they knew what I was talking about. Learning. One of the best ways to acquire knowledge and understanding is to be able to give it to somebody else. All right. And a lot of teachers are encouraged to build opportunities for students to teach their classmates into class time, to give them an experience of this within class, all right? So teaching is part of learning. Look for opportunities to study by teaching, okay? Whether that's in your dorm, you got a test coming up in I don't know, Snyder's Modern Philosophy or something like that, and say, all right, step back, let me teach this, Kant's categorical imperatives to you about that, Give that to your roommate, classmates, study groups, take turns teaching each other. If you are someone who's doing well with your classes and things come fairly easy to you, look for opportunities to reach out to your classmates who aren't doing so well. Maybe pull them aside at the library and say, hey, can I help you? Do you need some help with this? Would you help getting some explanation? Can I look over some of your writing for you? Because newsflash, teaching is not it's not just a whole long day, 8 to 5 of wonderful students giving you wonderful work that you're putting smiley faces on all the time, right? Part of your job is helping people who are struggling do better, right? And so, teaching, look for opportunities to learn by teaching, right? There is official peer tutoring opportunities still here at the college. When I was here, there was the Writing Center. That was a huge help for me. I grade papers all the time. My experience of that started in the Writing Center. That was great. Also, CBDS. What? You're literally arguing for something in front of a group of people who might not agree with you. As I sense many of you don't agree with me on the Debate Society. Bring it on. And as I said before, other ways to prepare for the idea of teaching is talk to your teachers. Again, ask your teachers about the craft of teaching. Okay, we have so many. In my time, and I'm sure still today, there's so many great people who teach at the school. And if you get into teaching, you're going to rub elbows with some really great people whose force of personality can get them through a lot of issues, a lot of challenges, a lot of struggles, a lot of challenges, right? So too with many of our professors here, right? But also, many of them and many great teachers survive also through honing the craft of teaching. Yes, it's a skill. It can be learned, right? Just because you have a group of 7th graders who don't listen to you, that doesn't make you a horrible person. It might mean you need to work on some principles of classroom management, but you can do that. That's something you can learn. So talk to those professors now, if you're interested in teaching, about what are some of the tips of the trade that they use that help them succeed, okay? Good teachers need both. They need force of personality, they need good craft, but yeah. Network, talk to other teachers. I'm here, frankly, because I knew people, right? I knew, I don't mean here. I have a career. I have an almost 10-year career of teaching because I knew people. Once you get in the door and you are able to stick around, you become very valuable. Seriously, right? In a lot of professions, the big challenge is getting in the door, figuring things out, and then having expertise. Once you have the expertise, you have a lot more staying power if you want to, right? So, getting in the door is the hard part. Making it last is getting in the door is the first step. Making it last is the hard part. The craft of teaching, all right? Nothing opens your eyes to the nature of humanity like trying to be a good parent. Take my word on that one. So too, nothing opens your eyes to truth and to learning like trying to be a good teacher. So, look for opportunities to learn by teaching right now. Last question I have to talk about. How important is it to think about what you want to do after graduation as early as possible? Earlier, I spoke about Christendom as an academic institution and your vocation to be a student and to focus on the duties at hand, okay? Part of the duties at hand involve looking to what comes next. Christendom may be an academic institution, but it's also, for students, a temporary one. And things come next. So, discern, all right? But do not let your hearts be troubled. If you're a freshman tonight, wow. If you're a senior tonight, you're in different situations, right? Don't let your hearts be troubled. Put your trust in the Lord, as I had to do that fateful night in Providence, Rhode Island. In Providence. No coincidence there, I'm convinced. All right? Put your trust in the Lord and he will take you where you need to go. It may be a long and bumpy ride. You might have some twists and turns, but he'll take you there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you all so much. I loved hearing their different perspectives and their different experiences, and hopefully you did too. So I'm going to invite them both back on stage and call for questions. I know you all have some, because about every day somebody tells me they're interested in education. So, yes.
My question's for Mr. Feckler. I'm kind of curious as to, like, did you pick 7th grade to teach, or did you sort of fall into it, and why?
Well, so for me personally, the story goes, I had the first sort of tug when I was in 7th grade. It has nothing to do why I taught 7th grade, but as I sort of listened to that and discerned away from other things and into teaching, it was pretty clear to me, and kind of still is, that my heart is in helping high schoolers, specifically high school. I teach middle school a lot. Right now I teach 6th grade, 7th grade, and even some 8th graders. And what I found is it's forcing me to hone the craft that helps me teach high schoolers even more. Also, I'm teaching middle schoolers, right? When middle school, it's important to help them learn how to learn. It's less important to help them learn, when the dates of whatever battles and whoever was the generals. It's more important to teach them how to learn what they have to learn so that they know how when it comes to when they have to learn what they really have to learn in high school and then college and so on. But for me, it was more like I got my foot in the door and they said, all right, you can teach 7th grade literature, right? Okay. You can teach 7th grade science, right? Yeah, sure. Can you teach Latin 2? Sure. How about algebra 2? Sure. How about 9th and 10th grade religion? How about 11th and 12th grade religion? I was like, if you really want me to, okay, I'll do all of those things. Have a good balance. Find that good balance. When you start full of energy, it's a good asset, but it diminishes. The longer you stay, it diminishes, and find a good balance. Know when to say no to things. One of the biggest skills that I have developed over my almost 10 years of teachings is, where are my boundaries? When do I not answer the email and wait until the next school day or whatever? And when do I say, no, you know what? This can wait till tomorrow, right? Because you are never, ever, ever, ever done. You're never done. You're never, ever done. There's always another thing that you could be doing. There's always another thing that you should be doing. You're never, ever done. Know what it takes to get the job done to the best of your ability, and keep those boundaries, and know when to say no.
I don't know if either of you had this experience before you went into teaching or education, but what would you say if people had told you that, like, oh, don't go to teaching because you won't make any money, or like you won't have any teachers unions will take away your rights, and I don't know, how would you answer those questions?
Oh, yeah, I think we should follow up afterwards. Okay. I'm kind of in a different situation since I work for the church, but I think, yeah, depending on what career path, what profession you choose, some of them don't make a lot of money. I think that's where you find your ministry, in a sense. But yeah, there is definitely, I hear you. I know that is a common, why did you go into that field if you're not going to make money? But there is, I think for myself, spreading the faith, I see it as a ministry as well. So that's kind of how I would answer. You probably have more specific.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question to be asking when you're trying to think about a career and what comes next, right? Part of the answer I'd like to go back to is, what kind of school are you thinking about, right? Because different schools will have different resources. If you are teaching at a school that's primarily based on a mission, don't expect a lot of money, right? And if you're looking for a career that's going to be financially very nice, teaching's probably not what you're looking for, all right? There are ways to make a career out of teaching that are, it's not bad, it's not poverty, right? There are ways. But in my understanding, in my experience, they're not mutually exclusive, but there is a tension between mission and sustainability. Now, I am in a different situation from Clarissa. It's very different if you are single and if you are married with a family, right? Those are very different situations. So personally, part of the way that I make it work is I have a couple of other side jobs. For example, coaching soccer at Christendom. Adapting plays or the college is doing this weekend, come see Right Ho Jeeves. I adapted that. You do side jobs, right? And that's part of how you can make it work. But that's part of the question that you have to confront if you're looking at any profession, right? There are professions that tend to be more fulfilling, and there are professions that tend to be more lucrative. I guess that's the word I want to use. And they're not always the same, right? Where are you being led? I can't answer that. But I'm glad that you're working on it.
This question is from Mr. Feckler. What are some of the big
Telling his mother.
What are some of the big ways in which being a parent has helped you be a teacher?
Oh my gosh. And there's, like, I could probably list more easily to list the ways it hasn't helped me be a teacher. I've never had to change diapers at school. But on a far more serious note, to dive a little bit into the first half of that statement that I made, nothing opens your eyes to humanity like trying to be a good parent. Speaking as a man who is a father, my life in so many ways that I can't even communicate is now, whether I like it or not, an image of God the Father to my children. That freaks me out. But by entering into that mystery, it leads me closer to Him whom I am trying to communicate as a teacher. And there are a lot of ways in which that's very hard to communicate without knowing what I'm talking about, right? And to this point, right, there's only so far that I can go on that line as a layman, right? I can be mission of Catholic schools. I teach at a Catholic school, by the way. Mission of Catholic schools, and even at any Christian school, teachers have an opportunity to be a gospel witness to their students. Sometimes a gospel witness that they're not getting at home, unfortunately. But oftentimes, and this is where it gets sometimes the easier, but also more challenging because you can go deeper, in complementarity to the witness they're getting at home, right? And I have what I have. I have sacraments that all you guys have, and one more. But Catholic education used to be a religious practice, like a practice of religious orders, right? People whose vocation was to take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and then teach, right? And so they had a lot more availability to their students than I have, right? They had less division of their responsibilities than I have. My primary vocation is to my family. Teaching and coaching and writing and directing plays at Chelsea and everything else is secondary and tertiary and quaternary to that primary vocation. Religious orders, that was pretty much their vocation. And so, yeah, I've got some limits that they wouldn't have. So if any of you are thinking about discerning religious life and thinking about discerning teaching religious life, you will have some advantages that I will be jealous of.
Very quick. You both mentioned the importance of going to graduate school for like teaching and religious education. I know there are some like academies and certain places that will take people right out of with just an undergraduate degree. But would you say that it still is extremely important to have that higher education? And would you suggest going to it right after undergrad or teaching for a couple years first?
Because Clarissa's actually gone to graduate school. I think it depends. To teach in the state of Virginia at a public school, you don't need a master's degree. You need teaching certification. You can get teaching certification with a certain number of credit hours in your subject area and a certain number of credit hours in education classes, right? So you don't actually need a graduate degree to teach, right? As with many professions, the challenge is getting in the door. If you're looking to teach at a school that wants graduate degrees, they tend to be wealthier schools. Maybe they pay a little bit more, right? Then maybe that's something you want to do. But if you're looking to, once you graduate, just be done studying for a little while, right? I don't know if teaching is what you're looking for, but grading is different than writing, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that right now. Look for what gets you in the door, right? For me, it was personal connections. I knew some people. They were looking for something that I could do, and I did it, and now I'm still here, right? But you don't necessarily need to. If you're looking for graduate degrees, there are a number of programs around the country that are really, really cool. This was one of the ones I was looking at, the one that didn't end up working out, where you can go to graduate school for 2 summers, teach during the school years. That pays for your degree, and then in 2 years you have 2 years of teaching experience and a Master's of Education degree. The first program was out of Notre Dame called ACT, A-C-T, I think. ACT. Highly recommend looking into that if you're seriously looking at teaching. If you're seriously looking to teach, highly recommend looking into those programs. I know some people went through them. They have great tools for teaching. It's a good thing. So yes, it's a little bit of what are you looking for, right? There are schools you can get into with a bachelor's, working towards a certification. There are some schools that will take you as a bachelor's and then support you in your path to a graduate degree, right? So see what's out there. See what's in your network.
The only thing I would really add to that is that I personally found it really helpful to have gone through graduate school classes. Here at Christendom, the theology classes are they're solid. You're going to know your faith. But some of the classes I was able to take in graduate school, methods of catechesis, it's a much more, maybe more practical class that had to do with, again, actually like learning how to teach or how to pass on the faith in kind of a, it was just a different focus. Granted, I also took Old Testament and New Testament, again, in graduate school, which went a lot deeper than the classes I took here in the undergrad. So I think for myself, I appreciated that extra knowledge, and especially the more practical knowledge that I got. So that's what I would add to what Chris said.
Yes. This question is for Ms. Blank. So I guess it's kind of 2 questions. First would be, what's your favorite thing about your job? And second would be, what's the most difficult?
Goodness, great question. I would say my favorite thing about the job is when it gets time where you get around to the sacraments. I know that, again, you get to see how the students have grown over the course of the year, the things they've learned, the things that they can now, that they didn't know at the beginning. That's really satisfying. I've also loved getting to really work with my catechists. They come from all sorts of backgrounds, all different ages, and they each bring a really unique perspective to living the faith and passing it on. So that's been a huge blessing to me to, see the results in the students. That's just kind of a nice thumbs up from God, like, yes, they're getting those graces, we made it. And their joy at receiving it as well. And then, working with the catechist is really wonderful. Hardest thing. Great. Yeah, there's so many things that I could mention here. Oh, goodness. Okay, so one of the things is I feel sometimes a great amount of pressure to say the right thing. And I think sometimes it's just, okay, we're in this conversation. I'm trying to teach this topic that maybe is a little bit harder for them to understand, or trying to resolve a conflict. Quick prayer to the Holy Spirit, because in a lot of ways I don't feel like I have to rely on him. So I think getting in those situations, I just, in some ways you feel so inadequate. You're really an instrument in the hand of God, and so that can be really challenging. But also being like kind of that humility to be able to say, I'm not sure. I know where I can go find the answer. let me get back to you. If they're asking a particular question, maybe about the faith. So again, like having those resources is really helpful. But yeah, having that humility is something I've really been able to grow in this position. So that's one of the examples I would give.
This is a question from Mr. Feckler. What are one or two things you found most helpful for classroom management?
All right, some nitty-gritty stuff. All right. Be absolutely clear what your standards are. Enforce them. Now, how you want to enforce them can depend, right? And I think that what you have on your the tools that you have to enforce will depend on what your school situation is. I know some schools where they have a demerit system. Chelsea does not have a demerit system. There are different things you can do, and there are a lot of different ideas. I do this thing called medicine cards. But the other side of that is know what your standards are, enforce them, but that's just not a negative thing. That's not just a negative thing, right? Actively seek out what they're doing well, encourage that, and feed that, right? And the more that you can encourage what's going well, it's like a garden, right? The good things grow, and you can, if you're pulling out the weeds as much as you can, there will be less and less and less space for the weeds to take root. It's never going to be perfect. And side note, if I have one critique for a lot of secular ideas of how to do classroom management and theories of education, it's that they're all aiming at a socialist utopia in a classroom, and so they're looking for the perfect society in the miniature, and that's an impossible standard to hold. And in our faith, we know that we're dealing with people who are wounded, right? You have strengths, you have weaknesses, but we all have wounds, primarily original sin. And so everyone's going to have problems, and everyone's going to need accountability. But if you're clear with the standards, you're consistent in holding them accountable, and you're encouraging them to grow, whatever the format is, it's going to work sooner or later, maybe. And if it doesn't, it's not your fault.
What did you do to the kid with the whisker?
I just had to laugh. I just couldn't stop laughing. It almost derailed the entire day. Seriously. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For Mr. Feckler, you mentioned finding that balance, especially going into teaching high school,
Yeah.
where you're not too close to the students, it's
Yes.
far away. Do you have any practical tips of how to find that balance?
Yeah. I have had the pleasure of working with a number of young teachers over the years who have struck this balance to greater extents or to lesser extents. Be professional yourself, first of all. Don't lead with trying to be their friends, because a teacher it's maybe different in college when you have more mature students who are seeking more of the adult relationships and are not at home, they're separated from their family. But when you have kids that are going home every day and are, let's face it, a lot less mature than they are ideally when they get to college, don't lead with being their friend, right? Because if you lead with being their friend and you build a teacher-student relationship that's on we're friends, how do you give them an F when they deserve it? How do you hold them accountable when they need to be held accountable, right? And the inverse of that is just as bad. When you give them a good grade that they deserve, they just get, oh, she likes me, or he likes me. Rather than, it was this skill, it was this effort, it was this habit that led to that success, right? They're not reading the grade, they're not reading their own self-rate. So don't lead with being their friend. Be professional. Have boundaries in your social life. I never have friended any of my students on purpose on any social media platform until they've graduated. That's a boundary for me. Different teachers don't have that, that's fine, but for me, that's it. Since you asked this, I'm going to give this one last, but if you're a guy, grow facial hair. Seriously, these kids are so visual. Seriously, they're so visual. As soon as they see a sign right on, like every day, all the time, every time they see you, they see this is an adult. They'll cycle, little inceptions going on of them having to think of you as adult. It's a little harder for women, but at the same time, oh, right, of course, no. Looking like an adult is a little harder, but at the same time, I'll never forget, there was a great prank pulled by a friend of mine when I was here on freshmen. It was the first day of classes, first day for Dr. Linton. Does she still teach here, Dr. Linton? No, okay. She didn't live around here, so she was almost never on campus except on Tuesdays and Thursdays when she drove from Manassas to come teach here. And she had a freshman literature class, and a junior put on her professional clothes, went into the class, had discussed this already with Dr. Linton, so it wasn't, it was kosher and everything, and started to teach the class. Freshmen couldn't tell the difference between a professor and a junior. So there are ways of making it happen. I happen to come from a family of all boys and have nothing but sons, so I have no tips for you. But they're so very, very visual. If you give them the visual cues, they'll respond. I'm wearing a blazer. I'm wearing a tie. Tonight. Hint, hint. So.
Other questions? Yes.
Kind of bouncing off Mr. Feckler's point. Ms. Blank, do you have any tips for how women can look more professional?
I think Christendom actually prepares you pretty well by having a professional dress code. There's a standard we're held to here that I at least found that I largely hold myself to it in the work, at the parish. That's really helpful. You're getting formed in that professional dress code now. I think, as Mr. Feckler mentioned, it's a little bit harder. I think a lot of it has to do with your attitude and your approach. So it's a lot easier to start stricter and work your way back than to start more lax and try to become stricter with your students. So I think, again, the professional dress code helps. That have that standard. But also, it mostly has to do with your attitude, your approach to them in that way. Are you kind of, at least in the classroom, I find that I usually do not joke around with them. Maybe if they're at recess, I will. Joking around is kind of the wrong term, but I'll kind of ask about how their day's going. Kind of separate that from the classroom, and that will help a bit as well.
Real quick. I just want to underscore something Clarissa said there. It is way, way harder to start friendly and go strict than it is to start strict and go friendly. Way harder. Way, way harder. An uncle of mine who was a teacher for many years at Brookwood and Avalon, if some of you know that school, gave me this advice. I haven't followed it because personality, but this is his advice. Don't smile until December. Whether or not you follow the letter of that advice, the principle of it is it's way easier to start strictish and get friendly than it is to go the other way around.
Other questions? I have one final question for you. What is your best tool for staying organized as a teacher?
This has my grading. This has my notes, as you saw, right? And this can come home with me, and I don't have to take the whole thing with me. I have 5 folders in this binder, one for each day of the week. And at the end of the day, I clear all my trays and put all of them into that folder so that I can file it later if I don't have time, which I usually don't. And then I have lots of other things. So my first year of teaching, I had 6 different classes at 6 different locations. I was carrying everything across the whole school, every period, every day, for the whole year. you need things to help you stay organized. There are a lot of great resources. There's a great book. I'm forgetting the name of it. Maybe it's The Organizer. I don't remember. Anyway, I think it was Abraham Lincoln once said, if I have 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 7 of them sharpening the axe. In my experience, when I am the most confident, when I am the most prepared, when I am the most ready to teach, when I'm the most ready to handle what things are being thrown at me, is exactly coinciding with when I am the most organized. And the inverse is definitely true. But for the times when I can't be as organized as I need to be, and I can't be as prepared as I need to be, then the skills I developed at the Chester Belloc Debate Society for extemporaneous speaking come in handy.
If there are no other questions, give our guests a round of applause. If you all want to stay after a little bit, chat with them one-on-one, chat with each other. If there's any food left, I don't know that there is. Oh, there is some. I'm getting a nod. Grab something to go. Take it with you. Thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you in the spring at more of these events. Have a good night.